Hey, I hope you're doing well today. Today's going to be another ticket stub video where I talk about some ticket stubs from my past. Somewhat embarrassing sometimes, but it's okay. I'm listening to today Woods 3, Deepest Roots, and Darkest Blues by Woods of Ypres. If you remember my last video or two, I told you I was digging into their catalog, working my way from the bottom up. I got through their second release yesterday. Enjoyed it quite a bit. This one is seeming to take a little bit more of a lot more melodic approach in the vocals, which is fine. No big deal. But yeah, I've really dug into this band quite a bit over the last week, and I'm a huge fan, so I'll link it below. And also, someone commented they've enjoyed my that I'm incorporating beer into this review, so I might just have to crack a beer every video I do. So what I'm drinking now is Big Hugs. This is out of from Half Acre, out of Chicago. This is an Imperial Coffee Stout with vanilla. The coffee they use is from a place called Dark Matter, which is also out of Chicago. They put this beer out every year. I think this is the 11th, 12th year maybe they put this beer out. They do a few different variations where there's, I think there's a coffee stout version. There's this one, which is a coffee stout with vanilla. And there's a bourbon barrel-aged coffee stout with vanilla. I did not get the regular style, but I did get the bourbon barrel-aged one. Those of you that don't know, they make beer and they'll toss it in bourbon barrels and age it for usually a year to 2 or 3 years, and it increases the alcohol content quite a bit and gives it kind of a different flavor. This is a pint of beer. 4 pints of this is going to run you about $20. And you can see here it is 10%. So for reference, I think a Miller Lite or a Bud Light's 4.5 to 5 maybe. And this is a pint, which is 10%. So some cool artwork on this one. Big Hugs. If you are in the liquor store, you probably have to go to a certain liquor store that carries craft beer to maybe get this. I don't know how far distribution goes for Half Acre. I'm just lucky to live in Illinois, and I'm close enough to Chicago where my local liquor store gets a lot of cool beer out of Chicago and some other places. So if you like that, go check them out. I'll link it below. So you can. I think they have a beer finder on their site. You can see where to get it. If you want some and you're into beer, do let me know. We can trade beer. It's technically, I think, against the rules to ship beer, but there's ways around that. Wink, wink. So if you want to know about that, or if you want to trade beer with me and you're in another part of the country, let me know. We'll work some stuff out. So we're going to dig into some more of my ticket stubs. This one, we're going back in 1995. I've been doing these in order, if you remember. This whole page. I shouldn't say this whole page. Most of this is dedicated to another Milwaukee Metal Fest I went to. But first up here in red, you see Steelheart, a $10 ticket stub. Steelheart was an awful glam metal band from the 90s. They sang a song. Their most popular song was I'll Never Let You Go. It was on the radio. I primarily went to this show because it was, I lived near a place where you could get into bars when you were 19. I had turned 19 near a college town, and they allowed you to get into bars when you were 19. You technically couldn't drink when you were not 21, but as you all know, that's kind of an unwritten rule that, they put a little stamp on your hand, and then you come in, and you usually found ways to have a beer or something. But they were a terrible band, but it was my first bar show. Unfortunately, my first bar experience was Steelheart, but I was excited. It was super loud. They were on the radio, so it was kind of weird to see a band that was kind of super popular play in a little bar. But it was a good time. It was $10, no big deal. But everything else on this page that you can see here, hopefully. That was all around Milwaukee Metal Fest number 9, I believe, in 1995. These are some newspaper clippings and other things that I got from it. This is my original ticket stub. And I also have the official program still from 1995. I showed one of these in the past. This one came with a free corn sticker poster on the inside. I don't even know if it's still in here. Yeah, it's basically their. You can see the top of it, but this was a picture of their first album. It was kind of right around the time when Korn was starting to explode. Nu metal was a thing, but not really. It hadn't taken off to the heights that it eventually became. These programs, they create them ahead of time. You can see here. Sorry, my camera's reversed, so I'm still getting used to which way I'm supposed to go here. But they talk about the bands that were scheduled to attend. Obviously, things change. Bands have to cancel. Their vans break down. Their buses break down. Blah 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 blah. The inside here is an advertisement for Traces of Death. I don't know if any of you have ever seen these videos, but it's like real life death, scenes of death and destruction. It was kind of weird, but they had a soundtrack to it on Relapse, which was pretty good. I had it at one time. I don't know where the hell it went, but so this is just another program of talking about bands that were either supposed to play there or did play there. There's some advertisements here with some other bands. Typo Negative, rest in peace, Pete Steele. But I do have this piece of paper came out the day of, so they handed this out. Some of the bands that are on here that I remember seeing, I'll give you a rundown here. So the ballroom stage, which was upstairs, this is in a Eagles Ballroom in Milwaukee. So if you've never been there, the upstairs is this huge open ballroom, and then you go down 2 flights of stairs, if I remember right, and there was a stage downstairs by the bar. But the main headliners that night were Fear Factory, Flotsam and Jetsam, Korn, and then Megadeth closed out Friday night on the ballroom stage. And then the rave stage, the way it would work is bands would start, it looks like at 3 in the afternoon and go till 1:30 in the morning. So it makes for a long weekend, as you can imagine. The bands I remember seeing, we didn't get there that early on Friday because we had to drive. I remember seeing, I think it was Wicker Man, Stuck Mojo, which this is before they were popular. The Meatmen were a highlight for me. I had not heard of the Meatmen. A buddy of mine who couldn't go, was really into punk rock. He said, whatever you do, don't miss the Meatmen. And I was like, okay, I'll check him out. And Tesco V, the singer, came out with this huge fake penis. And right when the band started playing, he hit a button or something, and confetti shot out the end of it. They had props. Crowd went nuts. They played the downstairs stage, so it was quite an experience to see the Meatmen. Instant fan. Went and bought, I think at the time, Pope on a Rope was out. I went and bought that immediately, listened to that on the way home, and I've been a Meatman fan ever since, so for 25 years. Fear Factory was good. They were still in their prime around this time. Flotsam and Jetsam, I just wasn't familiar with the material. Korn, at the time they put on a good show. I know a lot of people shit on them now, but when they first exploded onto the scene, love them or hate them, they started nu metal, I guess, with, you could argue, the Roots by Sepultura fed into that too. But I remember Jonathan Davis came out with a bagpipe, and I was like, what are these guys doing playing hip-hop beats with metal guitars, with like 7-8 string guitars and bagpipes? It was just a weird experience. Then Megadeth, they were good. Again, this was back, I think Symphony for Destruction, or what's that album? I can't remember the name of that album, but the one with Symphony for Destruction and all that fun stuff, I think, was out when Megadeth started to take a turn. For the worse, in my opinion. Saturday, you can see here, there's a ballroom stage and a rave stage. These are all the set times and bands that played. As you can see, it's a full day. The ballroom stage started at 9 o'clock in the morning, 9:40 if you can imagine waking up early. After Megadeth ended at 12:15 in the morning, and then 9 hours later, you got bands starting up. But the bands I remember seeing were Malevolent Creation, Thought Industry, Broken Hope, Typo Negative. That was a highlight for me. Huge Typo fan. Cataclysm, I believe I remember seeing them. Absu, I remember seeing them because that was the first time I saw someone with corpse paint on in person, and I didn't know what the fuck to think. Incantation, I believe I remember. Immolation, and Internal Bleeding. Hardcore, I should say hardcore, maybe a slam death metal band out of New York. Still going today, I believe. This was probably the first time I've seen a violent pit in my life. They played on the rave stage, which was downstairs. The whole floor was just a swirling of bodies everywhere, and the band was on the stage. They were all moving. It was just something I'd never really experienced. I did buy a CD after I saw that. And I was a huge Typo fan, so seeing them was kind of one of the main reasons I went. Unfortunately, it looks like Voivod played at 1 o'clock in the morning. I couldn't hang. It's such a long day. You're going up and down the stairs. It's hot in there. This was usually in the summer. Yeah, July 29th in Milwaukee. It can be hot up north sometimes, especially in the summer. So yeah, it was a good time. Experiences I'll never, hopefully never forget. But yeah, it was a great time. So yeah, Milwaukee Metal Fest. Rest in peace. That's not around anymore. Some other ticket stubs we have here. This one up here, don't remember that show. It was in a bar. The something, I honestly don't remember why I kept that. Next up was the show here, D.R.I. They played in the same bar that Steelheart played in, but they played, I believe, if I remember right, they were at Milwaukee Metal Fest, and they were up north and on their way south on tour, and stopped at this bar and played. I got a guitar pick from Spike Cassidy. Don't know where it is. It might be over my collection over here. It was kind of cool because I got to see some of the same bands again as they were touring. They were making the rounds in the Midwest. Right here, Megadeth tour. It was the same tour with Korn, Flotsam and Jetsam, and Fear Factory. Next up, there are a couple special shows here I want to talk about. So I'm going to knock a few of these others out real quick and talk about these other two. First up here we have Monster Magnet. Try to get close here so you can see some of these a little clearer. Monster Magnet, and then Anthrax right there. And then Ozzy down here. So Monster Magnet I was pumped to see because Caius was supposed to open. And unfortunately, I think around this time in 95, I got to the show. Keep in mind there was no internet. I got to the show. I went to the merch booth because I'm a huge fan of Blues for the Red Sun. From Caius, I think it's classic. I'm going to do a Desert Island video on that. Got to the merch booth and I saw merch from Monster Magnet and I believe it was the Deftones. This was before the Deftones were the Deftones. And I was like, who the fuck are the Deftones and where's Caius? So rumor spread around the show that Caius broke up and we're not going to be there. I was pretty bummed. The Deftones opened. I believe they had their first album out, which I think is called Adrenaline, maybe. They came out on stage, and a lot of people, when they started playing, they started yelling out Korn. Obviously saying, hey, Korn's real popular right now, and here's this other band coming out on stage dressed in baggy pants and whatnot, playing some of these heavier hip-hop type beats, trying to be super heavy. But they did come out and do a version of Raining Blood, and that kind of won the metal crowd over. So I did not know the Deftones would become what they were today. But next up, and that show was at a place called Mississippi Nights in St. Louis on, October 15th, 1995. Just for reference, the Megadeth show was August 2nd, 1995. Mississippi Nights is also no longer. If you've ever been to Missouri, excuse me, you go through the, maybe I need to sip a beer real quick. If you're on Interstate 55, you go by East St. Louis, don't ever stop there. You cross the Mississippi River, and over to the side, there used to be a strip of venues right on the river, on the Mississippi River, and Mississippi Nights was one of those. It was a shady place back in 1995, and I've heard it's even worse now, but it's not there anymore. Super small club. I saw a lot of great shows there. Anthrax was next, December 8th, 1995. I don't remember much about this show. I honestly don't remember seeing Anthrax in such a small place, and I think this would have been around the time John Bush was the singer. I don't remember the show at all. I don't remember being there. I have the ticket stub to prove it, but I don't remember. It says with guests. Excuse me. Maybe if I knew who the openers were, it would trigger something in my mind, but it didn't. So next up we have Ozzy. He played locally with, it was supposed to be the Korn. It was Korn and Deftones opening up. So as you can see, between August of 95 and February 1996, Korn and the Deftones were right there with each other as far as popularity goes. Sorry, my throat is all jacked up today. But the Korn, I think, did not end up playing, and I believe Typo Negative ended up playing, which was a plus because I was a huge Typo fan. But you can see all these shows I've been talking about, Megadeth, Korn, Deftones, Typo Negative, they're all kind of in these same circles, and they just hopped off and on different tours as needed. It was cool to see Ozzy in concert back in his prime in 96. Very energetic on stage. The whole crowd was singing along. It was a good time. But these next two shows I want to talk about. The first one we'll probably talk about here in the middle. This is Down. There's a little picture from the newspaper. If you don't know who Down is, the show was September 24th, 1995. Down has Phil Anselmo from Pantera, Pepper Keenan from COC, Kirk Weinstein from Crowbar, and a couple other guys. I think Jimmy Bower's also in. Is he in I Hate God? I can't ever remember all those bands from that area. Interswap changed members a lot, but this was a tour that they did when their first album came out, which is another classic in my opinion. You've probably heard the song Stone the Crow, but don't base the album off of that song. It's probably the weakest song on the whole album. Riffs for days on that album. There's not a shit song on that whole album. But they only played about, I think, 10 shows on this tour, and Chicago was one of the stops. So I remember going there, checking out a bookstore before the show. And they played at the Vic Theater, kind of a small theater up near Chicago, or up in Chicago. Very small, intimate place. Down just came out and leveled the place from start to finish. Again, this was 25 years ago, so they were all in their prime. Obviously, like a lot younger than they are now, but that was a great show. I was very happy to be able to attend that show. I wasn't going to miss that for anything. I was a huge Pantera fan at the time. And Down kind of helped me realize that I should maybe expand my palette a little bit, because they do not sound like Pantera whatsoever. The final show I'm going to talk about, it's not going to seem like much. It's right here below my middle finger. It's the Circle Jerks. They also played at Mississippi Nights. This was August 14th, 1995. The reason this was such a special show was If you've ever seen Keith Morris interviewed, he talks about this show quite a bit in various interviews he's done. I'll find a link and put it below. But this is again at Mississippi Nights. It was a small club, and I was over to the right to give you an idea of the way it was designed. You have the stage. There's a general admission floor. Then it goes up another level and then another level, but it was kind of a small place. And then over to the right, you could stand against a rail and kind of watch the band, and there was submerged behind you. And Circle Jerks were playing along. I don't remember who opened the show. I'm trying to remember. It might have been local bands. But I had just gotten into punk rock a little bit before this. The Circle Jerks, I think, was probably my first real punk rock show, now that I think about it. And they were playing along, and then I saw down in front of me this guy start walking towards the stage, and the show kind of paused for a little bit, and I was like, oh, what do we have, a fight or something? Who knows what's happened? This guy comes up on stage, slaps an amp down on the stage, and Chuck Berry walks on stage. So if you don't know who Chuck Berry is, you need to go do some research. But Chuck Berry at this time, 25 years ago, an older African-American man. You all know the hits that he produced, but I did not understand why Chuck Berry was getting on stage with the Circle Jerks. I was flabbergasted. Keith Morris looked flabbergasted as well. But they plugged Chuck Berry's amp in, and he brought out that big signature red, I think it's a Gibson, I can't remember what kind of guitar it is, huge red guitar. And Keith Morris was like, well, ladies and gentlemen, we have Chuck Berry with us tonight, and we're going to play a couple songs. This was not playing, by the way. So they were like, what do you want to play? And Chuck Berry said something like Follow My Lead or whatever, and they started playing Roll Over Beethoven, which was a big hit for Chuck Berry. The Circle Jerks didn't miss a beat. A lot of punk rock, too, has ties to blues and rock and roll. So some of the chord progressions and stuff are the same. So they played Roll Over Beethoven and another song. I don't remember which one it was, but the crowd went absolutely apeshit. So to get an idea, you have Circle Jerks, who were popular in the 80s, playing with Chuck Berry, who was popular in the 60s, playing for a bunch of kids, basically, and everyone in that venue was going crazy. So the appreciation of the music was there. Kids were stage diving, if I remember correctly. They kind of had a big policy about no stage diving at Mississippi Nights, but people made their way up there. The pit was going nuts. I doubt most of the kids in that pit even knew who Chuck Berry was. But if you don't know, Chuck Berry's from the St. Louis area. There's a statue of him downtown in the what's that area called? Vintage Vinyls down there. I can't remember, but Chuck Berry got done playing a couple songs, and the crowd chanted Chuck, 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 Chuck for about, I'm going to say, 15 minutes. Chuck was obviously overwhelmed because he probably thought, I'm just going to get on stage and play with these crazy punk rock kids. And they were chanting his name for 15 minutes. Everyone was standing, cheering. You could tell that Keith Morris was just in awe. The rest of the Circle Jerks were in awe. It's like, my God, we just played with Chuck Berry. So that was quite an experience for me. It kind of showed me, too, that a lot of people in punk and metal, I think, have a bigger appreciation for other types of music. It doesn't usually go the other way around. So very cool show. Happy to have been there and experienced that. I remember going home that night, driving, and people were like, man, can you believe Chuck Berry was there? And I told my dad the next morning. I remember waking up, I was like, you're not going to believe this, but Chuck Berry played last night. He's like, I thought you went to see some crazy punk band. And I was like, oh, they got on stage. Chuck Berry came up on stage with an amp and guitar, and they played these songs. It's one of those experiences I will hopefully, again, never forget, but it's a story I tell to this day. Happy to have been there. It was a great experience. Never forget it. So that's it for this video, guys. Hope to be doing some more of these videos a lot more often. But thanks for checking out the video, and I hope to create some more videos here this week. I keep talking about t-shirt videos, and I just never do, so I need to get off my ass and do that. So Thanks for checking out the video, guys, and I'll catch y'all later.